We are officially recording this month's interview with Gilmar Smith. And I just want to say, Gilmar, that while I admire your work and I've watched your journey, I consider us friends, even though we've never sat down and had a coffee in real life together. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. I think that we have met for around 8 years already or something like that since the Google Plus. Oh, I miss Google Plus so much. But
I
yeah,
know.
I know. That was the best time ever. And it was really where my whole journey started as a photographer and everything. So it's so great just to keep in touch with everybody from
Yeah.
so long.
And I have to tell you that watching your own journey, knowing all of our journeys, we're watching you and like you kind of shared the stage with Mark Rodriguez doing classes at Photoshop World, and Dave DeBearmaker won the Photoshop Guru Award 2019. And we're seeing all of our friends who have put in the time, the effort, and the work, now seeing the fruit of all that hard work and all that labor. So I'd love to talk about so many things, but I want to hit some high level things. And something we had just been talking about before we went live is I mentioned that I do this live every day in April with a group, and it helps me with my confidence level on camera. But yesterday's topic was, get ready for it, imposter syndrome. And and you responded really quickly with, oh my goodness, like, yes. Can you share with me a little bit of your thoughts on this whole idea of imposter syndrome? Because you're someone who other people look at and say, oh, you've got it all together, Gilmar. Like, you're doing so well. So could you just share some thoughts?
Sure, I got it all together. Actually, it's a conversation that is really active in my world because I hang out with a lot of artists and all of that. And I haven't met a person yet that says that I do not suffer from imposter syndrome. I think that every one of us just have a huge amount of self-doubt. And as I was telling you, I think that putting art out there, being an artist requires a huge amount of ovaries or balls, what I like to call them ovaries because they make babies. and I consider my art my baby. And it's an act of bravery because I think that us and as artists just get so vulnerable just to make something out of our hearts, our souls, our brain, and just putting it out there for everyone to see. And there are people that are gonna like it, and it doesn't matter who you are and how big you make it. There are gonna be people that like it, and there are gonna be people that don't like it. So I think that even though I just struggle, and it's a roller coaster of emotions, of trying to making it or just doing this as a business, I think that you have to make peace with that you are not there for everyone to like it. You are there, like in my case, I'm doing it because photography for me, it wasn't just a way to get myself distracted or to make something. It was what it saved me for really, really bad depression from
Yeah.
grief. And it was a chance that I gave myself to do and to do something that I love and find myself through it. And
Yeah.
I remember, okay, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I'm going to do a screen share here as well, because I want to talk about that, your journey, the recover from grief, and your ability to work with what's right in front of you. So let me just do a screen share. I'm going to share your website but go ahead. We can continue to talk, because I think about things like, from, if I go back into the past a little bit, like The Magician, and as we go down and look at some of these, like this, I remember this, between self-portraiture and having your own household of beautiful little models, you're able to create wonder like this here. And some of these were done earlier on, like in the middle of the grief.
Yes, and that's the greatest story about all of that. I started photography when we met, and it was a way for me just to, okay, let's go back. when I started photography, I was going through divorce, and my son was recently diagnosed with autism, with high functioning autism. So there was a lot going on in my life, and photography was like that little outlet where I used to go to my garage and take pictures and create different things. And then fast forward a few years ago, I fell in love again, and I had this baby, my daughter. And then when my daughter was barely a year old, her dad passed away. So it was like, okay, so what am I going to do now? I was so depressed that it was like, okay, I have this huge responsibility of, raising two kids on my own, and one of them with the special needs. And I was extremely depressed. So to me, it was, I think that in those moments of darkness, I think that is very important. And it was for me just to sit down in peace with your sadness and with all of your feelings, and try to find the light. I found the light by making lists. I was like, okay, everything is, and I'm going to curse, I'm sorry. Everything is so shitty right now, but I have to hold on to the beauty of life. So I made this list, and when was the last time that I felt happy? What are the things that I do that make me happy? What do I want to do? Like if I get through this, because it was that bad. If I get through this, how am I gonna get through this? So to me, my kids are everything. But at the same time, I didn't want my kids just to look back at me and see me sad, and just remember me so with sadness. So I was like, screw it, I'm buying like Disney annual passes, and we're gonna go every single weekend, and it doesn't matter how depressed I am, they're gonna go back and they're going to look at their childhood in a beautiful way. So when it came to me, my happiness was through my photography, because from the very beginning, I didn't care what the rules were in photography. I was always creating of what I wanted. I wanted my bright colors, and I wanted to be funny. So the thing is that I started creating my self-portraits again, and I was like, I'm going to give myself a year, and I'm going to go both fit in. And if these things work, then I don't need anything else. So because I'm going to be just doing what I love, and I need it, because I was like, okay, I can go work 9 to 5, but then I will miss my kids' life, because I will have to get my daughter into school, and into a preschool and whatever. And I didn't want to do that, because, and especially with my son, I needed to be present whenever he needed me. So I went all in. And part of my process of getting through all those grief, and finding my artistic voice, was just going in there and doing self-portraits. And I did a few of them where my grief was reflected, and I will cry making them, and I will cry whenever I was editing them. But I didn't want, and to my personality, I just don't want to get, going in that circle. I think that, this happened, I gotta get out of here. So
I'm gonna stop you right there, because I want to highlight a couple of things that are really important, because I in my own journey, and most of my students already know, I've overcome the debilitating effects of mental illness and grief and loss and hospitalization. And there's a couple of things that you said that I would like to just key on, or not that you said specifically, but that you've alluded to. And that was you gave yourself a task, you gave yourself a commitment, and you stuck to it, and you did the work. See, some of the hardest things about moving forward.
Life and death, it was just a desperation, because I was so depressed. I didn't know if I was going to make it another day.
Yeah, I can relate.
So it was like, okay.
You said something, when were you happy? What makes you happy? My own story, my wife, when I was in my worst, when I hit that wall, she sat beside me in the hospital, and she said, when were you happy? And that's when I said, when I was photographing and retouching and teaching. And then she said, well, then that's what you have to do. Like, that's That's the goal. And so you did that. That was self-motivated. You didn't have a spouse to encourage you. You just said, I know I have to do this because it opens up the kind of world I want to live in.
And I had to kick out of my life everybody that told me that I couldn't do it. My mom,
Yes.
my uncle, my neighbor, my friends that told me that they were crazy. I was like, I don't give a flying F what you tell me. This is my life. This is my process. And I know what I can do. And not only do, because it was like, I told you, a matter of desperation, but I wanted to teach my kids. I think that it was like a great way to teach my kids that when you want something and when you love something, you do everything in your power just to do it.
Yeah.
And I'm not the kind of person that you sit and wait for life to happen. Like when my daughter's dad passed away, we were living in North Carolina. And I'm sorry if anybody is from North Carolina, but I freaking hated North Carolina. So I freaking hated it there. And he passed away. And I was like, there is no way that I'm staying here. I don't like it. And in the way that I'm feeling, I'm going back to Orlando because I was living in Orlando before. And I sold everything, all of my furniture and everything, and just grabbed my kids and we moved back to Orlando. And people kept telling me, and one of the things that I learned the most during that time is to believe in my inner voice and to just cover my ears from the other people, because I knew at the end what I needed to do for me and what I needed to do for my family. So things started happening, and I started making these self-portraits, and all of them, like the one that you pointed at with the sprinkles, and there was like a food series, like that one with the banana and all of that. They're funny, and the colors are bright. And okay, let me go back a little bit. I'm sorry, I suffer from ADHD, so this is really hard.
So do I. I completely relate to this. Yeah. I don't think I've met a photographer that doesn't have a distraction.
I know,
issue.
right?
Yeah,
so I loved I put like a one of those ball cap, and it took me forever to glue it in my head and then to glue those things. It would take me hours and hours and hours, but there were hours that I was having fun and I was finding myself over and over and over again. So that became my style, because not only I did like colors and all of that, but I was just searching for that feeling and searching for the happiness that I was getting making these pictures. So and that's somehow what stick to me and what stick to my style, that I always like to bring out expression and colors and have fun with my clients, and obviously involving my kids in my work. And now let's go back to the part, including my kids in my work. As I told you, I started photography at the time that my son was diagnosed with autism. And it's really hard for a parent, especially if you are not familiar with autism and what it comes, and it comes in different flavors, and it comes with different side of the spectrums. And I didn't know absolutely anything, so I didn't know what was going to be the future for us. I didn't know how to help him, and I had to learn so many things. So one of the things that I started doing with my son was using storytelling as a way to communicate and for us to have fun. So we will create stories, we would read books, we were just creative stories out of anything. And then I will tell him, how about if we take a picture of you doing this that we were talking about? And then I just build this amazing world for you through the pictures. And I think that if you go back to my website, there is this picture of my son, and I think that it was like the first, because we did some Spider-Man's, another one, but the first most elaborated one was him opening a book, and it has like all the Disney, there it is, all the Disney stuff in there. And that one, I think that he was like 7 years old or something. I don't even remember. I think that I was pregnant with my daughter. We were sitting and we were doing this all storytelling. And I was like, well, what if you open a book and all of your favorite things come out of it? And he told me every single detail of that picture was him telling me, I love fireworks, I love the Disney parks, I love the Blue Angels, I love, rockets and all of that. So then I started looking for pictures that I have taken in the Disney parks, and then I got some stock images that I didn't have of other things. And then he told me where to place everything. So
Wow, what a
that
great
was like,
therapy. Like that's a
yeah,
fantastic way to connect what you do to your whole life, like to raising children. Um, yeah, I'm gonna kind of transition us from this because I noticed in all your work, your creativity is spurred on by things that happen every single day. Like who would think to put a banana on their face and create a funny glamour picture, but it's so good. Like it's good, but it's funny. You know what I mean? Like it's not what we expect. It's the unexpected. And
I
that's what you're
always
really good
think
at.
that we are all born creative and we
Yeah.
are all artists,
Yes.
but we lose ourselves growing up because of the way that we're raised, because of trauma, because of so many things. So to me, being in contact with my inner child is crucial for my work and for everything that I do. And I think that those ideas come from my inner child, and just not taking
Yeah.
myself or anything that I do too seriously, because if you do, then you lose the magic of everything.
Yeah.
And
So
that's what
important.
I
I'm such
do.
a
Yeah.
serious guy too. I know all too well because I'm very serious. I have a funny side. I do have a sense of humor, but it doesn't get to come out and play that much.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's the thing. But when I'm teaching my students and all the mentoring I do, one of the first things I tell them is creative is not how you feel, it's who you are.
Mhm.
And if you understand that creative is who you are, then no matter how you feel, you can create. And you're walking proof, you're living proof of that very statement that
And it's
creative
a
is not.
muscle, and I think that you have to practice, and you have to to let yourself play every day. One of the things that I tell people usually is just grab something that you have in your house, no matter what it is, and just look at it and think different. Because I think that we don't have to think just in pictures. I think that we should think about stories. So let's say the correct thing that you have behind you, like you can make, like just looking straight at that, you can make how many stories can you can hang yourself in there with your whole jacket. You can just drop it in the floor and somebody getting inside of the door and just falling just because that thing was on the floor. Like you, and that's what I do. I just look at just one element, one little thing, a mug and whatever, just sit on it and write down all the things that you can do with it. Every
Mm,
picture that you can do with it. You can make it huge, you can make it tiny, you can make things coming out of it. I mean, there is opportunity for creativity everywhere, but we just have to learn that you don't have to think big. You just have
yeah.
to just with
Yeah.
the most
Actually, it's
simple thing.
focusing on what's in front of you, what's
Yes,
right
yes.
before your
If you
eyes.
look, yes, if you look at one place, and I practice this a lot in the warehouse that I'm part, the prop warehouse. I don't know if you have seen it before.
Oh yeah.
I'm a
I know
business
your partner.
partner.
Explain it to the people who are watching. You explain the Prof Warehouse. It's
One of
so
my
cool.
business
Everybody wants one.
partners is a humongous prop house. You can find there anything that you can imagine, from movie sets, from commercial sets. Like there is no one thing that you can think about, from vintage props to anything that you cannot find in there. But it's crazy overwhelming. Sometimes I just get in the car, I'm gonna just get something just to build up a set, just to bring to take pictures in my house. You look in there and it makes you wanna cry because there is too much. And with my ADHD, it's just like so. I try just to, I'm gonna get one thing and then I'm gonna sit with it, and I'm gonna come out with 1,000 of ideas of how I can take a picture with just that element.
So I'm going to pause you there. You're spewing out gold to all the distractive creatives who will ever see this. This is gold. So I have a saying that I open all my presentations with, and I pulled it up here so I don't make a mistake. And it's by a gentleman named Eugene H. Peterson. And it goes like this. It says, the great masters of imagination do not make things out of thin air. They direct our attention to what is right before our eyes. And with their help, we see it not as commonplace, but as masterful, not as time-worn, but as timeless. And that's what you do. You are a master of imagination. So, yeah, I just wanted to read that because
I feel like it. I have 2 kids, and my kids, I have gave them the gift, and hopefully they will use it because, as I said, creativity and art has been so healing for me. So I wish I knew all of that when I was a teenager. When my life was crazy,
yes.
I never had like a very like a stable family life. It was kind of dysfunctional, and I wish I had I was more creative back then. So I give this gift to my kids because I know that regardless of what happened in their life, they're always going to have an outlet.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I relate to this. I remember when I was young, my dad was very encouraging. He said, you got to do something that you love. And my mom would say, you'll go broke if you do that. You'll die poor, right? So it's like I got one supporting me and one saying no, and one saying yes, and one saying no. And so my whole life,
because I remember when I was in Venezuela, I'm from Venezuela, and I told my dad that I wanted to go to this university, that it was in another town far away, and I wanted to do photography because there was like a really good photography program in that university. And he told me, you're gonna starve to death.
Yeah.
You know, and the whole thing, and look at me now, you know, and I'm really proud. And I mean, I'm 41 and I wish I started earlier, but I'm proud of myself because I know the moment when I built in everything, and the sleepless nights, and all the heart and all the will that I don't know where I found it. But I have built and probably was meant to be at this age and not earlier than that. But going back to the creativity side of things, as I said, I gave my kids the gift of creativity, because they are creative, using creativity as an emotional outlet or as a way to distract themselves or whatever. But they give me the gift just to show me on daily basis how creative they are. If you go back to my website, there is this picture of the 3 of us raising snails.
Yes. And you have a blog post too. I just got to say, the Racing the Snails too is also a blog post. So if you go over to her website, gilmarphotography.com, you can check out how this image was made. But let's go back and take a look at the image here on the front of the website. The Racing of the Snails. There we go.
Yeah, that was so funny.
The look on your face is priceless.
Yeah, well, that was super funny because it was out of nowhere. My daughter told me that she wanted to have a picture racing snails, and I wasn't even on my desk. I was just like in the sofa, and I just was like, okay, let's find some snails on Adobe Stock. Let's find a background. Then we went and we sat on Apple boxes, and I just told them, because I built the background first. So I knew how we had to pose in the angle and everything. And we did that, but that's my daughter's sense of imagination. It's just the wonder of childhood. And to me, these pictures, I know that for people see, oh, they're super fun, but for me are so meaningful because I have there like that sense of imagination that my daughter had. I think that she was 5 at that time when we did this. So, and the same with my son with the books and so many others, is their ideas that I'm lucky just to be able to just put them on an image for them to look when they're 30, when they're 40 and whatever, and get back in contact with this moment when they create.
And that brings me to another aspect of photography and life that I really like to emphasize, and that's the idea of legacy. Photography builds a legacy. We don't just leave behind some pretty pictures. We built a legacy, either for ourselves or for our children or for others. We're building legacy. And I think that's really important. Those who know me know that I love the printed product too, because it's hard to really enjoy a USB in our drawer. It's really easy to enjoy a beautiful portrait on the wall or a piece of art on the wall that has become legacy. I really appreciate it. I have some works from my friends, some paintings and some photographs on my own walls at home. And they bring me a great deal of joy because of the legacy that they bring.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. And even in my work with Photoshop User Magazine, whenever I need to do a picture or whatever, whenever I'm doing, I try to involve my kids. And then here is my son behind me on the cover of Lightroom magazine, and they have been in magazines so many times. So I love including them in everything that I do, because I'm a single mom. They are with me all of the time. So I want them to know what I'm doing, and there they see the effort that I put into it, how much fun and how much love I have for it, and they're part of it. So it's I think that is a beautiful way for us to grow and collaborate as a family. And actually, in I think that it was my first Kelby One class. They are my models, and it was just about making portraits at home and how I create these fun pictures with my kids. So to me, it's just photography is not a job, and I'm always running like a headless chicken, but is my passion, is what we do for fun, and is what we do on our free time. And I'm lucky just to have this little girl telling me like, Mom, what if we do a picture and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, and the same with my boys. So it's super fun.
Yeah. So I'm just sharing some of these courses that you've done now with Kelby Media, which is fantastic to see. And I just want to know how it feels when I went to the course page on Kelby One, the first place card is you. And I thought, oh, that's so awesome. Look at that.
Well, it is amazing because I learned, and when I first got my camera, I started searching online what to learn, how to learn, and whatever. And I stumbled Kelby One, and it was how I started. It was how I learned lighting, to use my camera on everything. So being involved for so many years with things for Kelby One, I have been writing for the magazine since 2016. I'm part of Photoshop World, and I do along with Mark does his, and I do mine, the shooting base where all photographers go and take pictures, and just being involved with them, and learning everything about photography from them is just such a joy. And it's not just work. And I was just talking to the producer this morning. It's just like we have this amazing relationship because we have worked together forever, and we have partied together, and we know our families. That is just beautiful, just to do everything. So tomorrow,
I know I am about to screen share that. Well, by the way, way back a few years ago at Photoshop World, I had the pleasure of spending a bit of time with Calibra. She was a guest on our show Life Through the Lens, and from that sped off to me going down to Photoshop World and representing down there. And then I met Calibra and of course Karen Hutton for the first time. And so many people, like I can't even list the number of people that influenced my life that I got to have one-on-ones. And then that led to me meeting Scott. But what a fantastic legacy they're leaving. I remember back in the day just dreaming of the idea that you could have something in Photoshop User Magazine back when there was no digital, there was no internet. It was really cool. So
yeah, it is just to have a column, then just to write there. It's just amazing, and it's just a dream. And that's when I love to go back to that list that I made when I told you that I was super depressed, and what made me happy and what not, and all of that, and see everything that I have done in 5 years, and just being so humble and thankful about the opportunities and 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 all the work and everything just to lead me to where I am today. So I'm gonna tell you the story about this show.
Yeah, tell us about this. And before you do, I don't have the address. I'll add the address of this into our event page, so you can go and click on it, because it's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow.
This is the first one, right?
PM. Yes.
Yeah. So this is in my calendar. I have to watch this. Definitely.
And I told you were not going to have a problem having me talk, because talking. So you would probably have to tell me to shut up for a little while. So anyway, you
go ahead and tell us.
This show, I think it was in August. Yeah, in August. No, July 2018. I was still in my, trying to figure out my life and all of that. And in one of my sleepless nights, I came out with the idea for this show. And it's just like one of those things. And as I said, that's my ADHD. She's like, what am I going to do with this? I need to get this out. And I couldn't sleep. And I just kept writing in a notebook everything that was coming. It's just like, it's too crazy. So the next day I was like, oh my goodness, I want to do this. I want to do this. What do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, I know. I'm going to talk to Calibra. Calibra and I became good friends, and she's amazing. So I was like, well, Calibra, I have this idea. And I came up with this idea last night, and I don't know. I'm going to tell you about it. And Scott. So you tell me, should I pitch it to him? What should I do? So I tell her, like, I want to do this photography competition and blah, 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 and everything. And she just wrote me, you're into something. And then disappeared. And I'm like, oh shit, what does that mean? So she didn't write me back, and I was like, I'm not gonna bother her. I'm just gonna let it digest. And then I can ask her, hey, should I write Scott or whatever? The next day, I think the next day or that afternoon, I don't remember. Their assistant called me and asked me, hey, Gilmar, when can you come? Because Calibra told me that she would like to set up a meeting with you and Scott.
Wow.
Like, oh shit.
you acted on this idea, and then within a day.
And it was like a hyper, like, I'm just gonna just let it go. And it's one of those things that you learn when you lose it all and you have to rebuild it again. I lost fear, and losing fear has allowed me to build so much and just to do so much, because I am not scared to pick up the phone and talk to anybody. I'm not scared to ask for what I want. I'm not scared to say, hey, I think that we shouldn't do that anymore, or do it. And it's and it goes back to some of the amazing relationships. I work with Platypod. I started as an ambassador, and now I'm the creative content manager and social media and all of that. And the good thing is that the owner, Larry, which is like Larry and his wife are like, to me, my adopted parents. They are fantastic. But when we have meetings, I always tell him, hey, you know that I'm going to interrupt, and we have with marketing companies and whatever, and I'm going to say what I think. And if I don't like it, that's why we have you here.
And good companies welcome the feedback. Yes.
But and I was so always scared to do that, and I was always scared to make a call and to pitch something, because first, I'm a woman, I'm Latin, and at that time I didn't have the track that that I do now, but then when I was like, the worst thing that can happen is that they tell me no.
Yeah.
And the world is not going to end. And that's how I live my life now. It's just like, oh, they say no. Well, probably I will call them again in 6 months or a year.
So they said no. Yeah.
Probably they will say yes. And if not, well, who cares, So I just being so detached about that kind of stuff just completely changed how how the things around, it's just like I used to take rejection so badly.
Yeah.
Now I think probably it's not the time. Probably we're not a good fit. Probably I just have to redirect my idea and look at it in another perspective, and just look at things differently, not taking it so personal.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, I want to hold on that for a second, because when people don't like our work or don't like our idea or don't like a proposal like that, or if we're afraid someone's going to say no, they don't reject us personally. They're not rejecting Gilmar or Ron. They're rejecting an idea. And so if we can separate that,
yes,
it makes it much easier for us to just move forward and risk being told no. Like, so what? No.
Yeah. And the thing is too, that my life cannot stop because I support 2 kids out of art. And I have like 5 jobs, and I need that, and I need to keep moving, and I need to keep creating. If I sit, it's just like my brain turns off. and I don't like it. So, okay, this didn't work right now. I'm just gonna make a note, and then I'm just gonna think about it whenever I have time, or the ideas will come up to my head whenever, is the right time for it. So I just don't, I cannot just take things personally that way anymore. Does it hurt a little bit? It probably does, but
Sure. You get over it pretty quick.
Did you die? No. So let's move on. So
it's just, another day happens. Listen, I want to kind of circle right back around talking about fear, and I'm going to come all the way back around to imposter syndrome, and I'm going to tell a short story about throwing a pebble in the water. So I have an analogy, and it happened literally because I picked up a pebble. I was and the water was still one day, and I threw the pebble out, and it hit the water, and it made some ripples just out of reach, just over there. And I thought, oh, that's like my skill level. That's my creativity. That's my goal, that ripple. You throw it out there, it makes a ripple. You're not there yet, but you can see it. And this is why we're always, as artists and creative people, dissatisfied, because we always see where we can throw the stone ahead of us. That's where I want to be. And so it creates a bit of dissatisfaction. This is actually a good thing, because it prompts us to reach that ripple, to reach those rings, to reach whatever effect that's going to have. But the interesting thing is, when we do finally reach that ripple, well, we can just pick up another stone and throw it in front of us, right? So it's always chasing the ripple. So it's motivation and that bit of angst, that bit of anxiety to move forward and get better, because we can see what we could do, but not to be dissatisfied with where we're at. And remember, look in the rearview mirror once in a while and see where you've come from, because you'll be surprised at what you've already accomplished if you take the time to look. And this is what I see in your life.
Yeah, I'm a person of lists. And I always write the companies that I want to work with. I always write, what I want to accomplish this year, blah, 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 blah. And I have a list of the things that I have accomplished and the good things that have happened in my life. And I always make sure to write it down, because what? I'm not going to tell you that I'm this happy and energized. I hit lows from time to time, and I think that everybody does, when I feel like, oh, does my work is good enough? Am I doing enough? Am I getting where I want to get? Is this the right direction? And blah, blah, blah. So I go back to that list and say, I've done this, I've done this, I've done this. Okay, so I'm in a good spot, and I'm in the right direction. So let me write some other things that I would like to accomplish. So having that allows me to keep myself in perspective and to keep me going wherever I need to go. So
that's a great place to kind of summarize this. If you were to give one piece of advice to growing creatives, I think you've given it through the whole interview, but if there was just one piece of advice you would leave with a creative person who might be struggling right now with maybe feeling imposter syndrome, or feeling the crush of COVID and not feeling creative. Like, I know in Florida, you're a lot more open. Here, we're facing a complete stay-at-home order. It might come down today, and
Yeah.
so we're feeling really isolated. And I get a sense in my creative communities, there's a lot of everyone's not feeling it, like they're not feeling creative. If there's one piece of advice you could give us, you could leave us with one little jewel, what would that be?
Just get up, find an object, look at it in different ways, and do something with it. I think that as I say, all of us hit those low moments, but and we have to allow ourselves to feel, because I allowed myself to feel sadness and everything, but until one point. After that, it's just like, I gotta get up and I gotta do something, whether I like it or not, whether I enjoyed it or not. And usually when that happened, when I don't feel like creating, when I feel burnout, and it happened a lot when we were in lockdown and I had to homeschool my 2 kids and work, and it was crazy. It was just like, okay, I'm gonna stop right now and I'm gonna create something. Maybe it's gonna suck, maybe it's not gonna suck, but just shaking it and just pushing yourself to do something, it just is the best way to get out of that circle, that mental circle of just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, that
just
ruminating.
making
I'm
it
so good
happen.
I'm so good at sitting in the mud puddle and
Yes.
complaining about the world around me. So
Yeah,
I'm
and I used to do
gonna
that a lot. Yes.
yeah, I'm gonna end it there more or less. I want to say thank you so much, Gilmar. I
have so much
really,
to
really
say, yes.
enjoyed this. Oh my goodness. I can't wait until we sit down and have coffee together or go to Disney World or whatever it is. We'll have a group, we'll have a gathering. Maybe it'll be Florida, but the group will be together again, and that'll be a wonderful time. So I really want to thank you for spending time with us and inspiring us. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to do a Q&A after, a private Q&A. But for those who have watched, I want to thank you as well. And if you get to see the replay on YouTube, do feel free to leave comments. And I'm going to leave links on YouTube and within the community to all the things we talked about today. And I'll see you again on the flip side. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you
Bye-bye,
for
Gilmar.
having me.